Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm parent coach, mother of four, and your host, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where you will learn that even for parenting experts like me, there is no such thing as a perfect parent, and that fabulous behavior and amazing relationships are right on the other side of that realization. If you're working your butt off to do right by your kid, honor yourself, and go beyond the BS around you, you are my person, and this podcast is for you. Full disclosure, I'm a sometimes potty talker, and we deal with the challenge of raising kids here. This podcast is for grown-ups, so stick your earbuds in and let's do this. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Confessions of a Parent Coach. I am your host, Ann Kaplan, and I'm so excited to be here with you all today. It is a nice and sunny day in Denver. It's a little bit cold outside. I am totally wearing clothes that only look good on camera. From the waist down, I look like I'm at a slumber party. And if I went outside right now, I would freeze my butt off. So I feel like this is the world we live in these days, or just make sure I look good from the tits up. That's what I say all the time. So I look good. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see that I'm wearing a very beautiful little blouse. My hair looks pretty good today, but it's all smoke and mirrors, everybody. So if that's you, you're in good company. Today, Confessions of a Parent Coach, I have a confession for you. And this confession, I think, is going to lead into a pretty interesting conversation. So the confession I have for you today is really about me, not as a parent necessarily, not as a coach solely, but just my personality in general is that I am a very intense person. I have had friends say in the past to me that being in a friendship with me is like watching a roller coaster or watching a soap opera all the time, being on a roller coaster. Like, it is very rare that you're going to come and hang out with me for coffee and I'm going to have nothing to say or nothing going on in my life or no drama. That is just who I am. And I spent a really long time being super frustrated about that because I actually really don't like drama. I'm not a drama queen or anything like that. It's just that I really lean into the intensity or whatever's going on in my life, and I become super passionate about it. And so I have tons of, I shouldn't say tons of friends. I have several friends who I have literally brought up in therapy sessions before and been like, how is it possible? This person is like never upset, never emotional. They just seem like their life just goes on like really nice and smooth, nothing crazy. And meanwhile, like my life looks like a map of the Himalayas. And I used to feel really frustrated about that and mystified as to why that was happening. And I kind of gave that up. This is just I am, and this is how my life works. But the reason why I brought this confession up for you today is because I have noticed a similar pattern in a lot of the parents that I talk to. Now, I am not a super roller coastery person when it comes to my parenting. That is something where I have my eyes on the prize and I really don't stray very much from my kind of North Star compass points in terms of who I want to be and how I want to show up with my kids. That is something that I cultivated in myself. But I used to struggle a lot when I would talk to parents who were more roller coastery in their parenting because I thought, well, that's not who I am. It was hard for me to relate to until I realized, like, oh, I'm totally roller coastery, just not about my parenting. But I'm going to give you a little story that I think will illustrate what I'm talking about and hopefully will inspire you to kind of step off that roller coaster ride and instead commit to a little bit more even Steven, even keeled approach to everything. So I have a client that we just started working together really only like maybe a month and a half ago. And when our first session, well, when she first reached out to me and hired me, things were going crazy in her family. Her teenage daughter was like completely out of control and unable to manage her emotions. So living in the house with her was like walking on eggshells. And she was having these like explosive, ginormous tantrums, in the house. And everyone was basically afraid of her, hiding from her, like all of those things. And so she felt the sense of major urgency, like we need help. When I first met with her and I did my discovery call with her, she was like, I don't even bother explaining your work to me. Just tell me where to sign because I need to sign up right now. This is not okay. We're in an emergency, basically. Fast forward to my first session with her after she had enrolled in the work. And she literally was like, well, my daughter's not really doing anything bad right now. So I don't really have anything I need coaching on right now. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is such a common phenomenon. I really want to talk about this on the podcast. This idea that something happens with our kid that creates a huge sense of urgency. And especially if it's something that's happened multiple times in the moment, maybe like it's the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth time this happens, in the midst of time number 6, we have a massive sense of urgency and we spring into action. We grasp at all the straws, including crappy parenting techniques, saying stuff that we heard our parents say, like whatever. We reach out. You might set up a discovery call with me. You reach out to your friends. You buy all the books on Amazon about parenting, right? You're in this like reactive state from that sense of urgency. But then things simmer down and we move on a little bit. And we kind of start thinking like, well, maybe things weren't as bad as I thought. Maybe I was overreacting. And then, well, what do you think happens? Time number 7 comes along. And this is what happens all the time. It can happen in coaching, like what I said with this client of mine, where in that session where she says, well, nothing's going on right now. My daughter's behaving fine. So I guess I don't really have anything I need coaching on. It was important that we were already in this committed relationship with each other so that I was able to say to her, well, here we are. This is your coaching session. And what if it weren't true that you didn't need coaching today? How could we use this time when things are calm and nothing's crazy and your kid is for whatever reason behaving and you get this little breather? How can we use this time to keep our eyes on the prize and stay focused? So just because the impetus that created that urgency and fear isn't currently happening to you doesn't mean that the ultimate big goal that we have of shifting the dynamic in your family has changed. It's just that we don't have the sense of urgency around it anymore because we are not literally being triggered and dysregulated by something that's totally out of control. So when we're in that lull, when the roller coaster comes down, instead of thinking, okay, well, I guess there's nothing wrong right now, we can say, I'm going to use this time to do the deeper healing that helps when that peak comes back. I'm not going to take my eyes off the prize and I'm not going to lose focus. And this is why it's really important for us to create a parenting vision, a parenting goal that is not inspired by fear and urgency. Fear and urgency are temporary, but this ultimate vision we have for our parenting, it's forever. So think about this. Are you in that place where you are riding on a roller coaster? You are like strapped to the front of a freight train, okay? Then the way that you handle those big peaks is to do something super reactive, like thinking, the shit's hit the fan. I've got to call Anne. Okay, but guess what? By the time you set up your discovery call, it might be only even an hour after this urgency happened. That intensity is going to pass. And by the time you and I actually sit down and talk, it's not going to be an emergency necessarily anymore. Sometimes the timing works out where, oh, what a coincidence. My kid just had another meltdown right before we meet. But most of the time, that's not the case. You probably set up your discovery call when things were horrible. The shit really had just hit the fan. But when we actually meet, that moment has passed. What I want to impress upon everybody is the ultimate goal never changes. The urgency comes up and down. That feeling of panic and I don't know what to do and I need help becomes less or more intense. That intensity, right, that I brought up in the very beginning, that changes. But the need is always there. The goal is always there. The vision is always there. And if you can keep that in focus, you're not going to be wasting these moments when things are calm thinking, okay, phew, maybe things aren't as bad as I thought they were. And I'm just gonna, forget about it. We don't want to do that. Okay. So think about that roller coaster. Think about how the rhythm of your life is. Things feel frantic, then they calm down, then they get frantic again. Do not fall for the, oh, it's calm for right now. I guess it's okay. Maybe it's no big deal. It's a big deal. Parenting is a big deal. It's always a big deal. And instead of deciding to reach out for help in this knee-jerk way where we're panicking, frantically trying to figure things out and then doing nothing, think about the fact that your vision is a big deal. That is the unchangeable thing. So we don't want to be these volatile parents that are super reactive all the time. It's not just about our reactivity to the situation, meaning I'm so reactive, now I'm going to reach out for help. Now I'm not feeling super reactive, so I'm not going to reach out for help. It's also, how reactive are you being to your child, right? We do not want to be dictated to by our emotions, okay? When we're behaving that way, our emotions are out of our control. We're not managing them. We are just reacting to things left and right. Things are calm, I'm going to do nothing. Things are crazy, I'm going to be, frantic and panicking. You're constantly in survival mode or in recuperation mode. But guess what? I bet you're parenting the same way. If you're having a good day, you show up this way. You're having a bad day, your kids get a different parent. Your kids are getting different parents at different times. And you're not really the one in the driver's seat about how you're parenting. Your emotions are like this drug. You're strapped to a freight train. And the truth is, if you set up a discovery call with me, 99 times out of 10, the truth is that you're going to set up your call when you're at your peak of anxiety. But by the time we meet, even if it's only an hour later, like I said, you're not going to be in the same state. So what does that mean? We just throw out the need for this work because you're not freaking out and your hair's not on fire right this minute? No, we got to keep the big picture because we need to be dealing in the reality of the big picture. And that is another confession that I don't really think about it as a confession because it's not anything I'm embarrassed about, but it's something I really know about myself. And that's a question for you. Do you know about the answer to this question for yourself? What is your superpower? You have multiple superpowers, by the way, not just one. One of my superpowers is being able to see the big picture, which is one reason why I am able to keep my eyes on that bigger prize when it comes to my parenting. Even though I'm a super intense and passionate person, I'm not really a roller coastery person. Because I have that big picture, it's also a great superpower in my coaching because I can kind of take all the little crazies and reflect that back to you in a very clear picture of, this is what's going on in the context of your parenting in general, in the context of your family, in the bigger picture of what's happening. So instead of, throwing out the need for this work or your bigger vision because you're not on fire right this minute, let's get back down to earth and deal with reality, which is that bigger picture. And make it happen for yourself in this more committed, stable, steady way that's huge. Whether we're talking about reaching out to set up a consult with me, or you're talking about just making sure that even when you're upset, you still have that bigger vision in your mind. And so you show up the way you want to as a parent. So ask yourself today, have you been riding this like crazy roller coaster with your kiddo where it's fine one minute, it's an emergency the next minute, and you're just always in fight or flight mode, in survival mode, or you're in that like tiny little eye of the hurricane? That's a really good analogy, actually. You think about that eye of the hurricane. Like if you're in the eye of the hurricane, you don't just sit there. The hurricane's going to pass over you again. You have to prepare yourself for the next thing. And that's kind of what's so great about coaching is that even when you come to my call and say, oh, my kid's acting okay right now, I guess I don't really need coaching. We can say, well, what do you think you're going to do the next time things are crazy? Or what do you need right now in this moment to be ready for that? And actually still get yourself moving towards that bigger vision, even if things aren't super urgent in this 1 minute, right this second. So I really, really encourage you to go ahead and set up your call with me if that's what you want to do. Keep that vision in mind and know that what's more important than these ephemeral passing emotions and intensities is the bigger picture of what you want, the vision you have for your parenting. And that's something that's a slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. So even a person who, even if you're like me, if you're super intense, if being in your life is like watching a soap opera for people, you can create stability and predictability and an even keeled approach to your parenting when you keep that bigger vision in mind. So I hope that's been helpful for you. I hope you found some resonant moments in there where you could relate. Maybe you relate to my client, maybe you relate to me. And don't forget that I always end every episode with a question from the listener. And the question I got this time is one that I get practically all the time. So I won't be surprised if like everyone who's listening to this is thinking, oh my gosh, thank you for answering this. The question is, how do you handle morning routine with little kids without reminding all the time? So this mom has a toddler and I think a first grader. And it's tons of reminders, getting dressed. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of the push and pull every morning. Kids are, it's time to leave for the bus. And, teeth aren't brushed, clothes aren't on, breakfast has not been eaten, all of that stuff. So this is a bigger picture. And I want to say that like morning routine is such a common challenge that it's a whole exercise in my curriculum that my clients get for me. When you do the self-paced course, when you work with me, there's a whole worksheet in there and video on setting up your morning routine. And I'm really proud of a couple of my clients who have like implemented that and made it their own and made massive progress in their house in terms of like the crazy chaotic energy. Talk about a roller coaster. Oh my gosh. Mornings can feel like a roller coaster for sure. The biggest thing I can say about morning routine is being okay with our kids not doing a good job of getting ready. So we need to be okay with, sometimes you wind up going to school in your PJs. Sometimes you wind up going to school and you haven't brushed your teeth. Sometimes you wind up going to school and you didn't eat breakfast. Those were all your choices, and I'm not upset about them, and it's not a problem. So the car is leaving the house on time. If you're not ready, no problem. So I'm going to give you the two biggest keys. And like I said, I'm giving you, this is a bigger question. It's a bigger picture. That's why there's a whole exercise on it when you work with me. But I'm going to give you the two biggest keys to start moving the dial on this. The number one is being okay with kids not doing a great job. Allow them to have messed up and allow them to experience what it's like when they've messed up. And the second is staying calm. So when they mess up, we don't get upset about that. It's no biggie. Uh-oh, looks like it's time to leave and you don't have your clothes on yet. No problem. I've got things to go in this bag and you can get dressed in the car. You can get dressed when you get to school. The car's leaving on time, but I'm not upset. So, and then I'm going to tell you the very, this is my secret weapon for mornings. It's called the just in case bag, which is literally just a grocery bag that has a change of clothes and shoes, everything for my littlest kiddo. My older kiddos, we don't need to do this anymore. And when it looks like he's not going to be ready on time, all I have to say is, oh, it looks like you've chosen not to get ready on time today. No problem. We have the just in case bag, so it's going to be fine no matter what. So you could see how there's a consequence built in there. The consequence is you're going to be getting dressed from your just in case bag. There's a boundary. The car is leaving on time. And I am totally neutral about it. I am just as loving when I'm giving a consequence to my kid as when I am telling them they did a great job on their math test or whatever. It doesn't matter my kids' choices. We are neutral about our kids' choices. We are not neutral about them. We're very much in love with them. And because we're neutral about their choices, that love is unchanging. So just a few little snippets about morning routine. To be honest, it could be an entire podcast episode. Like I said, when you work with me, you're going to get a workbook. And one of the things in there is morning routine because it's so important and because it's so challenging to so many parents. But I hope that at least gets the ball rolling for you. If you want to ask a question and have me answer it on the podcast, it's super easy. Just go to my website and kaplanparentcoach.com and click on the contact button. Send me a question. I promise I will answer it on the podcast. Have a great day, everybody, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.